shadows whisper when the lights go dim. Cold breath crawling on my skin. Voices echo from the other side. Is it real or just my mind? Things paranormal talks in the dark. Secrets buried leave a burning mark. We interview the dead, we debate the unknown. Chasing shadows where the seeds are sown. Fingers tapping on a Ouija board. Broken silence like a shattered chord. Eerie hums in the dead of night.
Well, that worked out pretty good.
Yeah, for a change.
Cool. Cool. Well, welcome everybody to a new Things Paranormal Talks.
Yeah,
Tonight we have a very special guest. Again, we keep having special guests.
absolutely.
All special.
We do our best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We have Chris
yeah,
from True Hunting.
absolutely. After I seen that episode, I thought that one I want.
Yeah,
Happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
Can you introduce yourself and what do we know you from? I said it a little bit, but for the people who didn't watch it yet, which is stupid, they have to.
I was listening to the theme song and it said eerie hums in the dead of night. I'm like, perfect. Then it cut to us. I'm like, well played.
Mhm.
Yeah. So my name is Chris Cesare. I'm what's commonly called an extreme haunting survivor. People recognize me from Sci-Fi School Spirits or Travel Channel, My Horror Story, but mostly the new recently released Netflix True Haunting Eerie Hall.
Yeah. Which, like I said, if you didn't watch it, go watch it on Netflix. It's still on. There were a lot of questions I wrote down. Thank God I wrote them down because I have a brain fart right now. It's the worst thing today.
You're young yet. Jeez.
No, I don't feel young now. Trust me. It's not
It's
there
your
anymore.
age. It's your age.
Getting there already. The moment you entered Erie, we're gonna drop right in. The moment you entered Erie Hall to get to your room, was there a feeling you had when you walked in already, or did it develop later?
It developed later. Geneseo is a beautiful town. It's a small college town. Everything revolves around the university. They're brick walls with ivy coming down the walls. Small town stores, stationery stores, florists, sub shops for hoagies and heroes, music stores. It's like going back in time to like 1950s. I love that people were kind. They said hello on the streets. There was a sense of welcomeness. And when you looked from the main street or the college out west to the horizon, it dropped down like a plateau, just dropped straight across. You saw for miles and miles. And as the sun went down, the sky turned pink and orange and beautiful colors. And then the lights would pop up, boom, 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 and the horizon of little towns and cities. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. And the concept of a haunting never occurred to me. It seemed like it was just too safe, too wonderful, too magnificent a place to go. And I just I was happy to be there. I went and toured a few colleges. I was actually given full scholarships to other colleges, but I chose Geneseo with a half scholarship because I wanted to be there. It's that beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is beautiful, even in
definitely.
the area for running like you did.
Yeah, it's you can run anywhere. You can run in the streets of a city, in the forest, any place you want. But it's really nice if you have a small community with sidewalks. You don't have to hit by the cars, right? It's nice, and the senior changes around. So you go from maybe some home to some businesses to fields. It was. I remember I used to run 8, 9, 10 miles a day just to run. It was just so beautiful out there, and I can't overstate how beautiful it was. In fact, in the chat, I see Vince Devereaux saying Geneseo is beautiful. Actually, that gentleman right there lives in California in the U.S., and he is one of the principal photographers for my book. And he went with me to Geneseo and began to digitally record many of the places that things occurred in, and also the the floor and the fauna, as they say. Just thank you, Vince, for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you for your work in the book.
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
absolutely. And one remark, the casting of those 4 episodes, perfect.
Oh, thank you. It's nothing to do with that. I was very lucky. And the way it works is Netflix had this idea. James Wan said to Netflix, and James Wan is very well known and has lots of pull in the industry, right? So he said,
Yep.
I think that sometimes these ghost movies are just a joke. People laugh at them. They just go to have popcorn and don't really pay attention for a jump scare. But he said, I really believe there are some experiences out there that are real, that people have experienced. We can actually go back to the roots, go away from all the special effects and say what really happens to someone's mind and their relationships. And so he asked Netflix to find a production company that could possibly be, effective at trying to go from a moment in time and bringing it to the people out there watching on Netflix. And they chose a studio called Raw Studios, All Three Media in the UK. And they had done the Meghan and Harry biopic, Vatican Girl, the documentary, Woodstock '99, Gold Rush, Race for the White House, a very respectable, very impressive company. And so they set about trying to wade through the thousands of hauntings that are reported across the globe. And after about 6 months, they had 3 or 4. They thought these seem like there's something to them. There's some evidence. There's some eyewitnesses. Let's pursue them. And so in February of 2021, they reached out to me a long time ago and said, "Hey, how you doing? Want to make a show about your experience?" And I figured it was spam. I thought it was just my money, so I put it in my trash bin. And then about a month later, I got a second one and said, "Hey, we're trying to reach out to you." I'm like, and trash. So weeks and these things. I spoke with John Zaffis, the haunted collector from Sci-Fi years ago, and friend of Brian Cano, and I said, "Hey, John, you've been around for a while. This company goes, oh, they're great. They do amazing things. That's the shit." I'm like, ooh, ooh. So I'm back in my trash bin. Luckily, I was able to respond, and that's how I got on Netflix. It's just that's an amazing. People look for it. They work for 20 years to get that's why their arms and they get their black T-shirt and they get their tattoo meters. They try so hard. I did it twice, and so luckily I wasn't foolish enough to do it a third time. And then we began to speak about what happened to my friends and I. And the first response that Netflix gave to the production company was a one-word response. One word: dusty. They thought, wait, this happened. This is a poor choice. This happened 40 years ago. Bunch of old white guys. No one's gonna. It's not contemporary. It's not progressive. We don't usually do this. And I remember talking with them, and our decision was, listen, I think we should keep doing this. And once they hear our words, they look at the friendships, they see the evidence, and they were overwhelmed. Once they got some of the interview clips to them, and they were just like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible." So we work in society to give everybody a fair shake. But it works both ways. We have a lens that we view our world from. We have to be very careful, I think, as people, not to exclude somebody because of how they look, how they sound, what they think, where they live. I think we sometimes do that too soon. So in my case, we're able to work through the lens of what Netflix wanted in terms of being progressive, young, maybe some people of color, recent things. And they said, you know what, this is great, make the investment. And I think everyone's happy they did.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Everyone should watch.
Yeah, definitely. I keep saying that. I really love that series.
Yeah.
Thank you. It did very well. It was number one in the UK. It was number 2 in the US, and we couldn't top that Ed Gein, the guy who wore the skin of the lady. They were number 1 in the US. We couldn't knock him out number 1 as hard as we tried, but they wanted a top 10 production, and guess what? Number 2 and number 1 that's pretty good. I think they're very happy. And as the protagonist in the first 3 episodes of it, I can tell you that I'm very thankful. I'm thankful first because my father is 82 years old, and he appears in the show.
Yeah.
And as a youngster, as a youth, I wanted to make him proud of me. He worked 3 jobs sometimes. He was very strict because he wanted to make sure we were safe. We learned. He forced me to run and things like that. And I really respected him. And now to hear all these years later, decades later, I can now put on Netflix and see his face and hear his voice. My kids can. My grandchildren can someday, right? And they can hear that this man was proud of me, which is my goal in life. So I'm happy about that. And I'm also happy that they did a great job of recreating the feel and the moments of the haunting.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I heard him say you didn't talk about the hauntings of- over 30 years.
Right.
Not a single word. What happened?
No, no, it might seem strange to folks such as your viewers, listeners, because they're intrigued by the paranormal and what is out there. But some people don't think that way. My father was first a science major in college. He was chemistry and biochemistry, so that's not really a paranormal field, so to speak. It's more
Mhm.
about empiricism, Immanuel Kant, what I can see, feel, touch, etc. And also, he became a teacher and he became a principal of a school, and he saw that sometimes you can lose yourself in your mind. You can get distracted by emotions over logic. And he said, people, he said, a doctor cannot panic, a surgeon can't panic on the table when you're being operated on, the pilot can't panic in the plane. So just focus on the things you can control, push other things away, and you achieve. And if you achieve very well for yourself, you'll have friends, be respected, have some money, and a good life. And so he didn't want to ever talk about those things. And even when he came to the college that evening, I called him on the phone, and I didn't want to do that because I figured he'd think, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" But I wasn't the kind of person to ask for help. I was kind of independent. And when I called and said, "Dad, I don't know what's happening, but it's real. I don't know. I need your help. I'm in a bad place right now." And instead of just asking 1,000 questions and interrogating me, he said, "I'll be right there." And he jumped right in the car. He made that 5 hour journey in 4 hours. That's the speed at which he drove. I found out later on that, my sister was angry at me. My sister Nicole was like angry. I'm like, "Why are you angry?" Years later, it turns out it was her prom night. He didn't bring her to her prom. He left her behind to come save me at the college. So, but it shows how serious he knew this was because I didn't ask for help ever. And he stayed the evening that night, and in the morning he said nothing. Let's go for a run. We went for it was beautiful, just him and I. The sun's coming up. There's still moisture on the grass. The birds are chirping, and just nobody else out. We're running step by step by step by step. It was almost like a very sacred moment, just me and my dad just bonding again. I'm away from home. These things are happening. Just he put me back into a place of stability, which is wonderful. Then he said, "Listen, I know I love you. Your mom loves you. If you need help, just call. Just change your room." Now the thing was, you don't just change your room unless something's wrong, right? So I knew that something had happened, but he didn't show what happened for over 30 years later.
Yeah.
And he did that only because I began to speak publicly about what had happened to my friends and I. And he thought, you know what? I should back him up. He's my son. Things happen there. I'll get out of my own comfort zone and back him up because at the time I was the adult. These are like teenagers and things, 18, 19, whatever. But I was the adult. I was educated. I wasn't involved in all the hysteria. So he felt by adding his 2 cents to the equation, it would help. And I think that it did.
Yeah, it makes you more credible, especially because Netflix told that your dad wasn't the believer, very
No,
skeptical, and it makes you more credible. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I think your dad, he knew something was going on in the room. That's why he
he
said change
did.
your room.
He did.
But I think there's a part of him that didn't want to scare you even more. I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but
No, you're right, Shane. You're
yeah,
right. And in fact, if you watch the show too, the people, Jeff hid things from me. Paul hid things from me. The priest hid things from me.
Yeah.
My friends hid things from me because it was bad enough as it was. They didn't want to pile on to my fear, my paranoia. So it's somewhat frustrating looking back that I wish I had more information that they had. But looking back, they were actually doing one thing,
yeah,
trying to keep me safe, trying to help me, which is I guess for a son, for a friend, that's what you want is people being safe.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand frustration that you would
Yeah,
have wanted to know on one end, but
yeah.
yeah,
But
it,
you don't always control things in your life. I remember my roommate Paul moved out. He just left. He did just left the college. That was it. He had enough. And I found out because he didn't say I'm leaving. He just says I'll be spending more time at home.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, he's gone. And so I walked into my room, and Jeff, who lived next door, is putting his stuff in the room. There's his books. I'm like, I looked at him. What? He goes, "You're probably wondering what's going on." I'm like, "Yes, I am wondering what's going on." Well, I talked to Ed and to Paul and everybody, and we think the best thing for everybody is for me to come in with you here, and to Paul to go next door into the room. And then he eventually left. And I thought to myself, "Well, that's a heck of a note. I mean, I'd have no say in this. It's my room. I mean, I went from being popular and happy and successful to being a victim. My friends are making choices for me because either they think I can't do it or they think they know better. And that's a little bit hurtful, especially you're a young kid with pride. But I realized one thing: Paul wanted out and Jeff was intrigued. So it's probably better for me functionally if Jeff, who's curious, is here because he's his camera all the time, his notebook all the time, right? So I was upset about being the victim, but I accepted that role momentarily if it meant safety. And sometimes in society, we trade freedom for safety. We do it in our governments, we do it in our life, in our relationships, right? So I
Yep.
made the choice as a teenager, you know what? I don't like it, but I'll trade my freedom, my choice for safety. And that's the first time as a kid I thought, oh my gosh, that might happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that definitely.
Yeah.
Um, do you? It's a question I wrote down in the end, but we're talking about your friends anyways. Do you still? Did you keep in contact after Netflix?
Oh yeah, it's great. Right after the show premiered, I went back to the college. I went back to the room. I met the students there. I talked to them, make sure they're okay. Then the following day, November 1st, I think we went and did a big symposium at the college. We talked on the where the priest used to work. The interfaith center is now a community center. So at the place where the priest read my notes, we were all gathered there. Craig was there. Jeff was there. Linda was there. I mean, it was an amazing, amazing thing, And Father Charlie could not make it because of health concerns, but he would have been there. But we took questions, we shared our experience, and we were all gathered together. And I found it fascinating that each of us adds a bit of a piece to the puzzle. And in hearing them talk after 30, 40 years, actually 40 years, I found out why they said what they said or what they actually saw, because it was turmoil for us. It was just turmoil. It wasn't like we weren't playing it out. It wasn't scripted. And we didn't have this daily plan. It was just reacting to crisis. Who's being knocked out? Who's bleeding from their back? What's the ghost saying? So we were constantly in flux. It was nice being removed from that emotionally to look back and say, so that's why you were in that room. That's why you said that. That explains that on the wall. And so it's kind of fascinating that, I've spent my whole life living the shadow of these events. And yet I'm still learning more about what happened, even though I was there and I was the primary focus. I've met people who were at the Warren Symposium with me when I went up to shake their hand. I met people who were there that night. I met people who it's amazing the number of people that this impacted. At least 50 people were impacted by this. I think a lot of times hauntings are very personal, where it's maybe 3 people or 2 people and there's light a candle and they see a spirit and things. But it's fascinating when a priest is involved and a parent, and we had a professor of psychology was involved, Dr. Lawrence Kassler, and all these students and the parents. It's kind of unparalleled. But none of us wanted it. Just
Yeah.
it's much like addiction, loss of a child, depression, bankruptcy, all these things. They show up in your life sometimes, a car accident, and you got to face them. And I learned that facing them with people around me was better than by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
I'm a bit curious. You met Ed and Lorraine
Yes.
Warren, and Lorraine didn't want to shake your hand. Did you ever find out why she didn't shake your hand?
Yes, I did actually. At the time, I was very embarrassed when these celebrities come to the college. And at the time, they were the paranormal. Ed and Lorraine Warren were the paranormal. The Amityville Horror was out that way. And just the movies and books. So Jeff was like, oh, we got to see them. They're amazing. I didn't want to go. I just thought I'd do something else. But he convinced me to go. And we went. And and I can tell you the presentation was interesting. I was like my father, pretty much a skeptic. I thought that's just silly. If there were ghosts, we'd see them. But when they played these things called EVPs, I'm like, what is that? I mean, it could have been a goat in a yard. It could have been someone with bad gas. I don't know. But when they played these sounds, it didn't quite sound normal to me. There's a little tension, like, oh, what actually is that sound? I couldn't figure out what those sounds actually were. So it got my attention. Then they had these slides, these still black and white slides. They had things that go beep, and these the thing, and they say next slide like that. And these images were purportedly images of famous hauntings of like the Lady in White, I think maybe Burnham Castle, something like that. And I thought that was a weird pictures. And the weirdest one to me, the strangest one, was supposedly a woman sitting in the back of this car, looking forward to the front. And according to the Warrens, that was her funeral. So she was in her car. I'm like, ooh, that is weird. Why would she be there? I mean, so I thought I was freaked out by that. Lorraine kept on saying over and over again that like attracts like. And I couldn't understand that because I was thinking, wait a second, give me two magnets. Like poles repel. Opposites attract in science, right? That made no sense to me. Over the years, I realized she's talking about like perspectives, like energies, like minds. So I was thinking again on this level, and she's like up here. So it's fascinating that, people can hear the same phrase and interpret it in an exactly opposite way, where Jeff's saying, that's true. I'm like, that's not true. Even though we're both intelligent and both, in the same, living in the same place. So at the end of the presentation, Ed says, come up, meet Lorraine. And Jeff was like, yes, let's meet Lorraine. And I have to tell you, the actors who portrayed young us, they were spectacular. I got a kick out of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt like I had a second chance at being young again. And we went up there. Actually, Jeff was closer to the edge, and he was going to go, first. And he waited back. He pushed me ahead of him to go first. My assumption was he had written down these questions. 1, 2, 3, tons of questions. He wanted time to select what do I ask? I have one chance. What do I do? Which one do I get? Which one? Right? So buy him some time. So I went up there, and I stepped to the stage. I put my hand out, and Lorraine said, I won't shake your hand. And I thought for sure someone's behind me making a fuss, or it's the person behind me, and it was me. And then Ed put his hands on me, and he, unlike in the show, he actually pushed me off the stage. The bump. And as he did that, she said, I don't want to know my future. I had no idea what that meant, but they were going to be going to around the campus of the college and do a investigation to see if there's any activity. And I didn't go because I was embarrassed and I was angry. And Jeff wanted to go severely, but he said, I'll go back with you. And that evening, right after the symposium, we went back to C2D1. That's the room. It was the C building, second floor, D quad, first room. C2D1 haunting. That was the room I was in Erie Hall. And Erie Hall is like Lake Erie. People think, you made that up. No, it's Erie Hall for the Great Lake, like Lake Erie, Lake Superior. That's what it's supposed to be. They put an extra E on there because that was what it really was. Anyway, so and Jeff asked, well, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. Did you make a face? He said, this is my face. That's how I look. No. I mean, are you sensitive? Yes, so just he felt that she must have known something. And but it wasn't until 27 years later, maybe 28 years later, I was at an event. I just was on the sci-fi show, and I was at an event, and a very pretty woman came up, very well, carries a very dignity and style, and said, hi. She said, are you the ghost boy? I'm like, yeah. Your name's Chris, right? I'm like, I'm Chris. I'm the ghost boy. Yes. She goes, my mom loves you. I'm like, oh, it's so nice. Who's your mom? Lorraine Warren. I'm like, I'm like, that's so nice of you, but I think she means somebody else. Must be some other Chris she thinks is me, because no, I know the whole story. She said, I know, I was there. Now, their daughter Judy didn't really like talking about the paranormal. Still doesn't like talking about it. But her parents would go on these tours around the colleges from the Northeast. They go to New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and she would accompany them. And sometimes she'd stay in the hotel. Sometimes she'd be in the car waiting for them. She would do word searches and crossword puzzles. In the meantime, her mom came back to the car that night and said, oh my God, there's this blonde-haired kid. His aura was just huge. It was so vibrant and so powerful, it blocked me. I couldn't read the room. They're being paid to entertain. They're being paid to interact. And she said, when I walked up on the steps, I was told that I blocked everything. And she was afraid I'd read her instead backwards. She didn't want that. So Ed, to save the show, not to hurt me, pushed me off the stage so they can get back on with what they normally do, their routine. So that's actually what happened. And her daughter said she held me in high regard. Her daughter, like Lorraine, loved animals. Lorraine loved her roosters and things. And her daughter still to this day makes bracelets that you can get. And the funds from the bracelets go to non-animal shelters, adoption centers, and things. And one of the things that I was given by Judy was the statue from her dad's library, from Ed Warren's library. It's a bookend from Spain.
Oh,
I went to
cool.
Europe. So that's a gift I have. So this is a nice artifact that I have, from the Warrens. I had a chance to meet her 4 years before she passed away, 3.5 years before she passed away. But as the day drew nearer, Judy mentioned to me, listen, she has dementia pretty bad. She might not recognize you. She might. I'm not sure. She has good days. She has bad days. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to go a second time and startle her. The first time it was not good for her. It startled her, put her in a bad place, even though she didn't resent that. The last thing I want to do is bookend it in the same way, like, oh no, what's this? And so selfishly, I want to go because it'd be cool to actually close that officially and shake her hand or hug her. But I think the nicer part of my personality, the kind person, the person who wants to be a good teacher to the students, wants to be a good friend, I said, well, I don't want to scare her, so I opted out of that the chance to be with her. But as much as that pains me to say, I still think it was probably the best choice for her. And that's, if I'm being honest, I want that for her, because she inspired a lot of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did.
Fair
Definitely.
enough.
Yeah, definitely fair enough. And I
Yeah.
can understand your reason.
Yeah, I try to
But
be good. People help me
yeah,
throughout this whole thing, so I try to give back as best I can. It's hard sometimes to always be good, but I try.
yeah. Well, like I said, everything happens for a reason, and it's probably a good reason why you didn't go.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think it would be history repeating itself.
Yeah, when they were on the stage, Ed and Lorraine, and Ed was like, "Ladies and gentlemen," he had like a carnival barker, big
Yeah,
voice,
yeah.
and she was like Elvis Presley, female style. Dun, 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 dun. It was a great, great show. And I remember I said to Jeff, I turned to Jeff early and I said, I could never do that in a million years. I could never get in front of people to talk about ghosts in a million years. And that's what I do. So 25 years later, I was back on that stage the first time talking about ghosts. So, like you said, Shane, it's just the cycle, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a quick question by Phil. Was there dramatic license taken with the script as opposite of the real events?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most popular and meaningful questions to ask because you're not there when they make it, right? You don't know because they say based on a true story. It turns out like there's one thing that's the same, everything else is false, right? For
Yeah.
views or for get their sponsorships in. I didn't have any say with the sci-fi show or Travel Channel show. They took great liberties on that. They had sponsors, they did demographics, and so I didn't know yet that I was supposed to push back. I thought they would keep to the facts as things were. I learned otherwise pretty quickly that the producers have their idea. You're a prop. They sometimes pay you money, sometimes they don't pay you money. You get a boost in your book sales, but they control the narrative. And so this time I was speaking to my children. I said, look, um, this is going to be seen by 10 million people around the globe. I will never have this outreach again. You go to a convention, maybe there's 50 people that you talk to, right? And you sell maybe 500, 600 books. But to have your name out there to millions around the globe will never happen again. The fear I had, though, was being misquoted, misunderstood. I always tell people when you can tell the truth. Lies are hard things to build off of. You have to remember the lie, who you told the lie to, what the lie means. And once your credibility is gone, you can't get it back. Well, he lied. And in a field with the paranormal where credibility is hard to get, and people they want to see you're legitimate, the worst thing I could do is a lie for profit or fame. That happens a lot, right? People, they get their chance and all of a sudden they change every fact to be on 15 minutes from that show. Like,
Yeah.
at this stage of my life, I didn't want that, and I fought very hard first to express the truth as I experienced it. And so what I did was, as they're making this show for years, I'm writing this book. I read the book, and I kept sending the chapters to them so they could read the chapters as they scripted the show, because every show, even every like live action show, is always scripted. They can't take the chance that nothing goes right. It's a huge investment, especially with James Wan involved and Netflix. They're spending millions of dollars, so they're not going to. Oops. Even though I spent at least 40 hours in interviews before the filming, even though I sent 400 pages of text, even though Jeff sent over 300 photographs, even though we all talked to them, when it went from London to LA, where Netflix headquarters, they have commissioners there, they began putting it into their cookie cutter thing. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I didn't know this. I'm preparing. I'm trying to lose some weight so I look better on TV, making sure I stay calm, and so when you start to film, which is actually 2.5 years after we began talking to them, so it's a long process. The first day of filming for me, of interviewing, was very difficult. they had me answering questions that made no sense. Why are you asking that question if I don't understand? They seem like they're pulling like one off from my book, like 9 times this, 1 times that. They asked about that one. I'm like, I don't understand. And so I did my best to answer truthfully and to give, but I was confused. Like, where's this going? And I felt like at that point in time, I was losing control of my legacy, because this is my legacy. Nothing I'll ever do, unless I stop the war in Iran, right, will ever be as big as being in Netflix with what's happening now. Nothing. So day one in the hotel, and the crew is great. They pay for my hotel and my planes and my trains and my food. They reimburse us with cash. They're very nice to me. But the people on Netflix didn't seem to care. And so the people who made the show, the production company, were in the middle, caught between the boss and their client. And they had to somehow find a way to match what I wanted and what they needed. And of course, they have the say, right? But I was smart in several ways, and I'll explain how I did this. The first thing, I wanted to have other people get filmed first. So Jeff interviewed before me, and Linda before me. Everybody before me. This way, they had what they needed except for me. So at that first night in the hotel, I thought to myself, nope, I don't like this, I'm not doing it. So I called my friends up and said, listen, just so you know, I think I'm bailing. What? Because they want to be on Netflix, don't you, right? But I said, here's why. And they said, you know what? You're our friend always. If you feel it's not going right, we'll support you. So the following day, I got in a limousine. I said complaining, right? I'm basically about being limousine. It was my future, not that, right? That was very nice to be up in my face. And then the car said, I'm not very happy about this. What do you mean? Like, this is not accurate. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't sullen. I was happy. I was outgoing. I was running the whole naked, just going, yay, having the time of my life. And it seems to me they're making me like I'm in the basement with a Ouija board, hating life. It didn't happen that way. And then so we got in a bit of an argument, and we got into the studio, and then there's their producers there, and he's, what's the problem? I said, I'm the problem. And we had to have this discussion. I'm not doing the discussion in the hallway. We're not doing it here. We're doing it in private, just the 3 of us. I'm not going to have the camera people here. No. We went for an hour, and I said, listen, here's my phone. At 11:30 a.m., the train leaves from here. I'm going home. No. So we talked. I said, I don't like what's happening. I don't like where this is going. We're going to pull our plug. And I knew I had them because they had spent all the research money, all the set money. They had hired on the camera people, the sound people, the boom, everything. They couldn't stop. So I knew I had them by the short hairs, as it were. Not to be mean, but this is my chance to take back control of my story, my legacy, and the truth. And to their credit, they went against scripting many times because I said, this is what I want. They were nervous, but they trusted me. And I told them, you're so talented. The work you do is amazing. But this is for you a job. It's a project. For me, it's my life. It's my legacy. And I can't risk this. And so from then on, every time we had an interview, discussion, they set me up ahead. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's what it means. And then before we did that, I said, okay, here's what really happened. Here's why. So you'll see episodes 2 and 3 are a little more natural in the way in which I'm approached and I deal with things. And then we waited, and people were not happy with what I did. In fact, when I do voiceovers the year before it came out, a year later, I got an email by mistake. It said, don't show Chris any raw footage. Don't show nothing. Because every time I saw something, I'm like, I got an idea. I kept pushing back, and they really couldn't say no. So to avoid that whole scenario, it's kind of like when you're in grade school in 3rd grade and you get a note. It's like, I like you. Do you like me? Circle one, yes or no. It's like, oh no, I can avoid that person because you're 7. So I kind of was that person. But when I got that, I said to my friends, I said, Jeff and everybody, I'm like, oh, I'm going to see the footage now, right? So we went to the studio. I was able to record with Tony Levin is the bassist for Peter Gabriel. I got to record with his brother. It was really cool, and just a crazy cool time. So it's been a year since I said these things. Can I please see the scene that this comes from, this line? Well, I guess so. Yeah, I think this is the scene it comes from, so I can do the line. It's been a year. And so in doing that, I saw about 60% of the rough cut. I'm like, yes! And one of the women from the production company just left. She's like, I'm out. And then she can't, I'm in trouble. It's like, and again, I'm not a coercive person, but I recognize the moment was important. This is my chance I always tell people, say the truth. Well, dang it, I'm gonna. And I did it in a way where I couldn't be harmed. They needed me at that point in time, right? They couldn't say no. And so what you see as the final product is mostly correct. They did make some changes. And I understand them. And here's the changes. Here they made them. They made one mistake. The mistake they made, I'm lefty. My actor is a right-handed drawing. No biggie, right? Okay. The big mistakes, big changes are location. When they took the finished product and they screened it in front of viewers before release, they would screen things. What's the result? People loved it except for one thing. We're always in that room. We're always in that room because the final encounter happened in that room. What actually happened was after the shower attack, I then went into the room. I broke the blessing of the priest. I talked to it in my room. But in the show, it happens by the torture tree where that spirit, the person's body was killed. That's one change they made. But they didn't change the conversation. They didn't change how it felt. So, okay, fine. If it adds to the quality of the product, that's your deal. You help me, I'm going to help you. I'll check that one off. The other thing that was not accurate were some of the dates because they only had, I think, 4 months to shoot the entire project, which is a long time to pay people's salaries for 4 months for that specialized servicing. They had to rent hotels, move the equipment, rent studios. The outdoor scenes were done in a period of, I think, like 10 or 11 days in the fall. Now, the haunting actually took place in the winter, in February to April. But they filmed everything. They couldn't bring the crew back 6 months later. They have other projects they're working on. They're working on things for Hulu and things, that window. So they had to put the dates on the show to match the foliage that they filmed when they had the young me running through the woods and things like that. So the major changes, the most critical change was the location of the final encounter is wrong. It was in the dorm room and not actually in the forest. The secondary thing that was not correct was that the dates were a bit off, but they picked dates that are important to people. They picked like Linda's birthday and Jeff's this, so they try to make them at least meaningful dates. But the date doesn't make a change in the meaning of it, And I have to tell you, it's really good in terms of how I felt and what we went through. And they used some of the photographs that Jeff took, and I'm very happy. So I hope that answers your question, Dog Man, because we fought very hard. I know people can't always do that, but I saw my moment and I took it. So people can watch that and know that it is mostly accurate and that it is true to the experience. There's one other difference too, and I'll put it out there too. You don't know unless you were there. They could not film in the actual Erie Hall in that room. They purchased it, they rented it out for that time period, but the college was doing renovations on the water system. So you heard it was jackhammers, truck, beep, beep. They could not create a area where it was soundproof. They couldn't do it, and they couldn't have those sounds for a scene at 3 a.m. That wouldn't be realistic. So they had to shift last second. Netflix has money and resources, but you can't control the world, right? They had to shift about 20 miles up the road to RIT in Rochester. So that's where everything was filmed there. And so people who go to Genesis Studio says, that's not quite Erie Hall as I remembered it, because it wasn't. But they intended to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, they did a great job.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, definitely. Was there, going back to the haunting itself, was there a moment you thought you might be pranked by your friends or something?
Yeah, that's what I thought for the longest time. I didn't listen. I had lived for 18 years. It's not a lifetime, but it's long enough to know that people do dumb things. That college students drink and do drugs and fool around. They're mature, right? They have to laugh at your expense. I knew that I didn't see ghosts every day, so that was unlikely. And so first I thought, well, maybe it's a practical joke. And in fact, the first time I heard the ghost, I was in my room. In that room, we had typewriters, no PCs back then, no laptops. We had a typewriter, ding. And there's no Google. I had a project due. It was for my class was Dr. Harold Battersby class. He was an English national who had come from a part of Turkey, and he was a brilliant man. And the class was called Ethno-Cultural Nonverbal Communications. Whew. And my paper was on somatotypes and culture. I know the word "and" in that whole sentence, right? So I had to go to the library, the card catalog. You find the card, look around, find the aisle, hope the book is there. You take the book out. You had to read the book, put in your own words, then type it. No mistakes. You made a mistake, start over. So it was a 20-page paper. So I wanted to get a start on that. I was very focused, and I wanted to do well. And as I'm typing, I hear Chris. So I said, "Come in. Door's open. It's not locked." Chris, like, the door's not locked. Just come on in. I'm busy. Chris, yes. Like, oh my God. Right. So I get up, go to the door, and nobody. And at that time, I was a nasty rank runner. I could do the half mile in about 2 minutes. No one can outrun me in that dorm. Nobody. So when I ran to the door, nope. Like, that's impossible. I looked to the window. I'm on the second floor. Nobody. That's weird. So I thought, well, if they're playing a prank, I'll just listen to them. I put headphones on with the stereo. Boom, boom, boom. Right now, the song I actually put on was Sammy Hagar, Voice of America. I can't drive 55, like that, because it was loud. But some songs are used in other commercials and things, so they couldn't get that for the show because it was already licensed. So they had the song "Mad World" by Tears for Fears, which I love. That song is perfect. Listened at the same time, so that was cool. And then I thought, so I'm listening to this song here in the head, Chris, again in the headphones. I'm like, that's crazy. So I thought maybe there were drugs in my food. Maybe there's a gas leak in the room. Maybe I was hypnotized. Maybe I have SAD because it's cold outside and dark. Maybe I'm under pressure from my classes. Maybe I was trying to find a rational, excuse for this, and I couldn't. Not that one. And after a few days, there was one threatening possibility left, which was the paranormal. Which I'm like, no, stop. I don't want anyone to know about it. I don't want people to think, and I've seen people break down under pressure for a big track meet, before a big test for college. I always felt bad for them, and that wasn't me. I was trained not to, and that scared me. And that very day after I heard the voices, when I saw the thing under the loft by the stereo, episode 1, the very end, that's how it happened. Just as scary as that. I'm like, I screamed right out of the room. It was a scary. In fact, at the time, I was eating these hot tamales, like cinnamon flavored candies. My parents sent me a care package because I didn't go home, so I'm eating these like cinnamon, like stuck in your teeth, like that, right? So I'm eating these things, and all of a sudden I see this thing. I'm like, ah! I'm like, what is that? And the kids were flying over the room, like making all these noises, like hitting the things, like, oh my God, like rocks. And I couldn't believe it. And I stood for a second. I'm not seeing that. It's a reflection. It's a shadow. And then it moved. I'm like, ah! So very bravely I screamed, ah! It was great bravery. I ran out of the room. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! I was scared blankless. I was like, ah! And Jeff was watching this movie, like you see, just Clint Eastwood movie, In Each Way You Can, I think, or whatever it was. And it's $4, I don't know, but I came running to the room, and he's like, what are you doing? I didn't want to tell him. I did not want to tell him what I saw. I panicked. And he said, why'd you panic? And I told him, oh, man, I saw a ghost. I don't want to say, I was embarrassed. And I thought for sure he'd be like, yeah, sure you did, or like, yep, I saw one too last night. He didn't. He looked at me like, wait, what'd you say? I said, there's a ghost in my room. And instead of being panicked or horrified, he looked like happy. Like, you don't understand, Jeff. It's not Casper. La, la, la. I mean, it's a thing. It's dead. It's scary. He didn't say anything. He got a camera. He got his notebook. He had a little vest, army vest on. He's like, I didn't know Jeff all that well before the haunting took place. I knew he was a very smart person. Growing up, he watched shows like In Search Of. That's incredible. And he always hoped there was something out there, not just punch the clock. You eat, you sleep, you die. And as he got older, he thought, that's a fairy tale. That's not true. And then so you get up on maybe these things being possible. And then this kid from next door comes running over. There's a ghost. And he seemed to have a purpose now, to be there, to make it all worth it to him. And he jumped headfirst into the investigation of what this might be. He also thought maybe I'm just overreacting, or maybe I'm just playing a joke on him. But soon enough, he began to steal the evidence of what was going on and the effects in the room. And so that's how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very intense scene.
Yeah. In fact, that's what happened. I had actually, for a couple seconds, fallen asleep, which thank God, because I could never sleep in that room. And then Paul said, Chris, wake up. I'm like, oh, I'm sleeping. Wake up. I'm like, what? He goes, there's somebody in the room. I'm like, what? There's somebody in the room. I'm like, go to sleep. No, I'm telling you, go check it out. I'm like, what I gotta check it out for? He's your side of the room. I'm like, so I went down the loft, got my flashlight, looked around. I didn't say anything. I said to him, I'm gonna beat your ass now. Come back and beat your ass. He's woke me up, right? And then as I turned to go up to maybe hit him, just playfully, there's the ghost. I'm like, ah! So I ran under the covers and dropped the flashlight. And he's like, what? What happened? All of a sudden he sees this thing up. He's like, ah! That's exactly what happened, just like that. And he didn't believe in religion. I don't think he believed in God or anything like that, or spirits. But he's the one that said, we need a priest to go to a church. So for an atheist to say that, you knew something. I knew something was going on. We didn't like this stuff, and we kept on experiencing it. So, it's just, I think that makes things compelling too. Not fun for us, but compelling.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Because there was a point when it started attacking your friends,
Yeah.
and you blamed yourself for it.
Well, I did because, well, first it only focused on me. It would be in my room. It would like touch these bony fingers on my feet. Like, ice cold. So I put my feet inside the covers, Then it would look at me at night. I wake up, its face is right there, breathing my breath, my face being numb. I'd scream, right out of the room, It was Chris, Chris, Chris. I had the room blessed. Paul said, let's go. Paul and I took Jeff's notes up to Father Charlie. He believed us. He came down, he blessed the room, and that made the ghost angry. Because the ghost, for whatever reason, respected the blessing. The ghost respected it, either because of the holy oil or the prayers, or the ghost seemed to know this was a priest. The ghost seemed to understand this person was the person trained in the word of God. I don't know. I didn't really talk to the ghost that much early on. I ran from it, threw things at it, but it respected it. So I was so lucky. I'm like, yes, it's over. But the thing was smarter than me. It began to attack my friends. So it attacks Linda. Chris, come help. It attacks Beth. Come help. Judy, help. So in other words, I can't get you that way, but guess what? I'll bring you to me. And I felt terrible because I kept myself safe, not knowing it would affect my friend's safety. And then I felt really bad about that. And even though I've been attacked myself worse than they have been attacked, there's something about friendship or family. I had two sisters growing up, and I tease them sometimes, you're dumb, you're dumb, you're dumb. But if people barred them at school, I'd say, leave her alone, or you got me, I'll take care of you. I protected her. So same thing with friends. Don't look, I'm scared to death, but leave my friends alone. You want me, not them. Stop. I was becoming angry at that thing, saying, stop it. And when you saw the pictures of Linda being held down in her bed, and I reached out to see if I can feel, I felt this energy and things. There's a smoke around her, the mist. I said, listen, you don't want her. You want me. You know that. Leave her alone. If you leave her alone, I promise I'll talk to you. Not now, not here, but on my own terms. I give you my word. My word, I will talk to you. But leave this girl alone. Then the mist went away. She sat up. Oh my God. Oh my God. And that's how I dealt with that. I tried to think. I was never a smart person, but I was a wise person. What I'm saying? I was never like brilliant, but I was always able to thankfully see patterns in my life. Okay, how does this have to happen? And that helped me a lot too. When after the shower attack happened, and I'm all cut up in my back, I'm bleeding in my back, and Jeff pulled me out, and my friends are saying, "You're going to the hospital. You're bleeding in your back. These stitches. You have gashes in your back. We're taking you." I said, "I'm not going." Like, no, you are going to the hospital, Chris. You're bleeding badly. You're getting infections. I'll fight you guys. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go because the doctors say, oh, he's self-harming. He's taking drugs. He's hallucinating. And I knew that I wasn't. So I understood my friends wanted to take me to the hospital. It makes sense to heal my wounds, right? So I had to think, okay, they think they're helping me. And I know they're not. They think I'm crazy. I know I'm not. I know they're not crazy. How can I combine our visions together? So I thought quick, okay. I said, guys, wait. Get some peroxide. Who's peroxide? Yeah, get bandages. Get some cotton swabs. So for 47 minutes, we had the old-fashioned clocks like this. Click, click. No digital clocks back then, right? I watched. It was peroxide, cotton swab, on the back, bandage. Peroxide, cotton my whole back had these 3 lines of bandages, like boxes of bandages on my back. But guess what? They were happy. Peroxide kills the infection. The wounds covered up, wasn't bleeding anymore. I was happy. I was in the hospital. So again, it was my struggle was to how to combine visions, because they're right. I'm bleeding. I have to be helped. I'm right. I can't go there. They'll put me in a jacket and nothing will get me. So, but we just saw the same world in a different way. And so luckily, again, I was wise enough or lucky enough to figure out how I can make their vision, their worldview and mine come together at a critical point.
Yeah.
And then again, too, with the photographs. I mean, Jeff took photos of everything except the back wounds. People say, where are the okay, yeah, pictures of the ghost on the wall. You got this over here, there, but where's the picture of the wounds in your back? You don't want that? Jeff was there. He was there, and I'll never forget it. After, right before we did all the bandaging, he said, the natural light is fading outside. We should get a picture of your back right now before the natural light fades. And I'll use a flash on this. It distorts it, And I looked, I said, no,